This is the console application exercise in Python. I have the project open in VS Code and I've got the README file here. So we're going to create and run a console application from the command line. Looking down below, we'll need to install with PIPENV, and we can see that because of the pip file here. So that'll mean we're using the PIPENV tool to manage our environment. Once that's done, our use case is given the user is prompted to enter input into the screen. So we'll say, hey, type something. When the user enters the input and hits the enter key, we're going to read that, and the system is going to display the reverse of that text. We're going to take the text, reverse it, display it back to the user, and then the system waits for the user to hit enter one more time before we close the application. We will start with our test, so we can run PIPENV run PyTest to run our tests, make sure that works, and then when we're done, we're going to actually package this up and run it as a console application, which is an exe file on the command line. So let's jump in. We need to start off with installing our dependencies. So PIPENV shell. We'll create our virtual environment, and then PIPENV install --dev. The --dev will install both dev and regular dependencies. And so we can see that here we've got two lines of installing dependencies, one for the regular ones, one for the dev dependencies. So that gets everything going. Let's go and run our test. So PIPENV run test, PyTest rather. All right, we do get a failure. None does not have a length. So we've got an assertion where none does not have a length. So let's go ahead and open up our test mirror console, and we can see it's on line 12 here. So effectively what's happening, this is coming back none or null instead of a value. And so that certainly doesn't equal 3. So let's look and see what's going on with the code. Before we do that, let's make sure everything's working here. What I want to do is make sure that VS Code is using the virtual environment we created. So down in the bottom right, I've got the version number 3.13.5 for Python. I want to use the mirror console one for PIPENV, which on my case is the bottom one. If you don't see this, you may need to restart VS Code and then again click on the version number and click on the bottom value or the value that you're looking for. That will create the compiler and make sure that everything is working correctly. So looking at this code, we are creating a user interface object that is an AI user interface, so an automated version of the user interface. Think of that as an automated user. Since the test is going to run without an actual user reading and typing, we need to create something that is going to read and type for us. So the read will hold on to the values so that we can interrogate them later, and then the type will basically give a value that we want to use. So the next line is set text to type when prompted, the word testing. So when prompted, this automated user is going to type the word testing. We'll then create our mirror application given the user interface, and we'll call run. That's our method under test. That's what's going to implement our use case that we saw earlier. Once we're done with that, we're going to go to our assertions. We're going to get the lines that were displayed to the user. What are the lines that the user would have read? And we're going to interrogate those. We're going to make sure that there are 3 of those, and then we're going to make sure that each line maps what matches what we're expecting. Enter the text reverse, the word testing in reverse, and then press enter to close the application. So we are failing. Let's go ahead and go to definition on run, and we can see that it's doing nothing. So it's empty. So we need to implement this. What we're going to use is this user interface, and you can see we're already holding on to it in self. So we just need to go to self.userInterface inside the run method to implement what we need to do here. So let's head back to the README. We first want to prompt the user to enter input into the screen. So we'll start with that. So self.userinterface. And now we need a message or a method that is going to display something to the user. So all sorts of things. You could say prompt, write, display message, lots of different methods. I'm going to use the method named writeLine. It's arbitrary, so that's just what I'm going to use. It's what I used in the other languages, so I'm going to just be consistent here. So we're going to writeLine, and we're going to just say, hey, type something. We're prompting the user to type something into the screen. Once we're done with that, we need to read the input after they hit enter. So we'll say text equals self.userinterface. And I'm going to do the opposite of writeLine. We'll say readLine. So read whatever it is that they're typing in for us. Then we need to reverse the text. So we'll say reverse text equals text, and we'll use the substring operator, ::-1 to go backwards. That'll read the reverse text. Now we need to write that out to the screen. Now we've already got our writeLine method, so I'm going to use the same thing. Self.userinterface.writeLine. The writeLine method is on the user interface, so I need to make sure to always call self.userinterface before these. And we're going to write out the reversed text. Now that that's done, what we need to do is wait for the user to hit enter. So I'm going to prompt them one more time to say, hey, press enter when you're done. Press enter when done. And then finally, we're going to wait for the user to hit enter. We're going to do a readLine again. Only this time, we're not going to put the value into a variable on the left. We're simply waiting for them to hit enter. We're going to ignore whatever they actually typed, but we are going to wait for them to hit enter. So this is our implementation. Now what we need to do, our user interface from your application is a user interface. And let me make that a little more clear with the type hint. So our user interface here, we need these write lines and read line methods to be on our abstract base class. So this is effectively the interface for the actual AI user interface class that we're going to be using. So we need readline and writeline methods here. Now these are going to be abstract methods because we're basically treating the user interface as an interface type rather than a true abstract class. Python doesn't really have interfaces, so we just treat it as an abstract class. That's why it derives from ABC, which is an abstract class. So our abstract method, let's define readline. Let's do that one first. So readline is going to return a string. Right now we're doing nothing, but we need to make it an abstract method, so I put @abstract method on top of it. We'll do the same thing for writeline. Writeline is going to accept text. Now both of these do need self. We're going to accept the text or the message or the content to display to the user. I'm just going to use the word text. And again, we'll pass, and then one more time, abstract method. So we have our abstract methods. Now if we run this, it's still not going to pass. And it's saying, hey, I can't instantiate AI user interface without an implementation of the abstract methods, readline and writeline. So let's go to our test framework. AI user interface derives from user interface. And so because of that, we need to implement these methods, these promises that we made, these contract methods. So let's go and add these in. So we've got get lines displayed, write line, or read line, write line, and then set text. So let me alphabetize these. Let's talk through what we've got. Get lines displayed and write line are paired together. So whenever we call write line, we're going to hold on to that collection of lines. So another one and another one, and then we'll return that with get lines displayed to user. So I need to create a field where we're going to store that. There's a couple ways to do that. I'll just do this inside a constructor. So we'll say def underscore underscore init underscore underscore. And then we don't really need to call the superconstructor. All we're going to do is say self dot, and now I need to give it a variable name. I'll say output lines. Seems like a good name to me. We'll create a new list. So now we can implement those two methods. Get line is going to return self dot output lines, and write line is going to add to self dot output lines. So we'll append text, and now we've got those two working. These next two, read line and set text to type when prompted, these are tied together as well. Set text to prompted, we need to hold on to the text that they give us, and we need to return that in read line. So again, we're going to go to self and hold on to it into a field. So we'll say text to type equals text, and now read line is simply going to return text to type. So that creates our round trip. Let's run it again. All right, now we get a new error, and that is enter the text to reverse does not match type something. What's going on here? Let's look at our test. The test said, I want the text to be enter the text to reverse, but the actual class, I said type something. We need those to match. So let me just paste in what we've got. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom line as well, because I know that's going to be a problem here in a moment. Paste that in. And now we have a passing test. So that's the first objective. Our second objective now, let's go back to the README, is to get the application to run as a console application. Now I could go and do this and it's going to fail. The reason it's going to fail is if I look in the console class, my console user interface also derives from user interface, but it does not implement readline and writeline. So I need to implement these methods. Let me go back to our test framework and I'm going to copy readline and writeline. Get rid of the method there. And now I'm going to change these methods. We're not going to do what we were doing. So readline and writeline, these are going to go to the actual console. So writeline is the easier one, although readline's not hard, but writeline's the easier one. So writeline, all we're going to do is print to the screen. So we'll say print text, that will display it to the user. Readline, there's a method called input in Python that we can use to read the input. So we'll say input, it can ask for a prompt. We're going to leave it empty to match what we're doing here. So this should get everything to run. So let's go back to our README. So what we want to do is we're going to use PyInstaller one file app console.py to create a console exe file. Let's go and run this. And I don't have PyInstaller, so this would be a good thing to do real fast. So I need to install PyInstaller. So that's going to be pip install g PyInstaller. This will install it globally. Apparently not G. We'll just run regular install. So if you get that same error where PyInstaller is not recognized, you'll need to open up a command prompt and install it. Pip install PyInstaller, that'll install it for the computer. Now that we've got that, I'm going to need to restart VS Code. So let me shut it down, we'll reopen it. Gets us right back where we were. Let me hit up, we'll run it again. There we go. So it is building. We'll see the dist folder is empty once it's done. The dist folder has the console.exe file. Let's do some last minute changes. There it goes. All right, now we can run it from the console. So I'll just use this terminal window. I'm going to cd into dist, and now we'll run console.exe. We're going to try to run console.exe. There we go. Enter the text to reverse. This is Chad's awesome test. There's the reverse. Press enter to close, and it completes the application. That concludes the console application in Python.